We're building a solar kiln to dry the lumber we mill faster. We have built the floor base, and next up we need to mill some 2x4s that we will use to frame the solar kiln. It's a good arm workout.
It really is. We got 9.9 hours on the machine.
Finally today we're actually getting to milling some logs.
Yeah, I went log shopping this morning and picked the front log off the pile that we stacked yesterday. We got it on here, and what was it, 20 inches at the thin end, 22 or 21?
21 on the fat end and just over 20 on the thin end.
So it's a nice log, it doesn't taper too much, it's pretty round. It is going to be kind of pushing the limits of the sawmill though. We're within a few inches of tolerance, we have to get it really quite centered. But hopefully we can get some good 2x4s out of this one.
Oh, come on. Can't do it. Every day I try, and every day is getting a little bit better. So far, one successful start, but when it's completely cold, I can't start it.
And I'm no expert at this. I haven't owned pull start engines before the chainsaw. So
He just has more muscle.
Yeah. I don't know, if you've got any tips for Diana on how to start an engine, I'm not going to be the person to provide the tips on this. I barely know what I'm doing. So yeah, leave us a comment, let us know. See if I can do it. Yeah?
I just warmed it up for you.
So after that cut there, we noticed that we were getting some kind of lines going across the board where it was cut, and it also felt hard work. So I think that's a sign that the blade needs replacing. So we have taken out the old blade and put in a new one. And the process is actually fairly straightforward. By far the hardest part of that process was getting one blade out of our box of 10 new blades, because they were all sort of tied together with a piece of wire, and they want to spring open as soon as you open the box, or as soon as you take the wire off. So getting one of those out was a little tricky, but once we got that out, removing the old one and installing the new one was pretty straightforward. While I was in there, I also tightened the drive belt tension. Again, this is just a couple of bolts to loosen, adjust, and then retighten. And we've done that once before. Being a new engine, new machine, it's not surprising that it needed doing again. It wasn't too bad, but since I was in there, it made sense to tweak that up. So fingers crossed, we are good to roll now, and this should get us going easily for the rest of the day, and hopefully we should have good cuts all day long. We've just done that first cut with a new blade, and that made a big difference. It was a fair bit easier to push the saw head along. The quality of this cut is much better, but just look how beautiful this pine is. It's fantastic. It almost feels a shame to make it into 2x4s. But for now, that's what we need. Later on, I'm sure we can make some real nice boards out of this. We'll be using it for all of our siding, and who knows, maybe even some shelving, some furniture, and other things as well.
So one end of the log has this crack, and we wanted to get it off in the top position, as opposed to every layer taking it off. So that's why we turned around the log. For our solar kiln, we'll be building it out of our own green lumber, and before the winter we want to mill enough 2x4s so that it would be enough for the frame of the solar kiln, and then over the winter let it air dry a little bit, because we're not going to be here over the winter.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the process of milling lumber and drying lumber, when lumber dries, it can start to twist and cup and warp a little bit. The way that we stack it and we sticker it is designed to help minimize that so it stays as straight as possible. But that drying process is when those changes will happen. For the framing, that's a problem. So you can frame with green lumber, but it's a lot easier to frame with lumber that's drier.
No, it's not going to be completely dry.
It's not going to be completely dry, but even just a little bit of drying over winter will help. And yes, it will actually dry even in the very cold conditions here. The rest of the lumber that we're going to use for the siding, a lot of 1x material, so 1-inch thick material for the board and batten siding, that would be nice to have dry, but is way less important than the framing. The board and batten siding approach is designed to work with green lumber a little better. So the priority really today is the 2x4s.
Yes, and we have started the pile. It has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish. Yeah. 7 layers. I think the top layer is kind of not as good ones, and we want at least 90. Hopefully like 100, maybe 120.
Yeah, so we've done the takeoff on our design and we needed about 90 studs. In reality, we'll have some waste and some overage. Yes. We're also still refining the design a little bit, so we may add a few little things on there. So I think if we can get about 120, which is about double, I guess, what we've got here of good 2x4s, that really is our goal. Okay, so we finished milling that pine log. It was about 21 inches in diameter at the fat end. We got a bunch of 2x4s out of that. I think we counted 22 good 2x4s and what's that, another 6 not so good 2x4s. So these are ones that we'll use for little side projects and things where it doesn't matter if there's some bark left on. But 22 usable 2x4s, we'll get those stacked and stickered and let them dry over the winter.
So this is our second log for today, and it is more tapered than the other one. It has like a large knot in the front. So we actually added a 2x4 on the back bunk to kind of raise it up and to be more level. Hopefully that will give us more material out of this log.
Log number 2, we got 20 2x4s and 6 not so good 2x4s ready to stack.
And those not so good 2x4s, even if we don't use them to build, we can actually still rip them into 1x2s, which will be needed for board and batten.
We're saving all of the even not so good ones so that we can use them for those sorts of things later.
So now we have the third log on the sawmill, and this one is 20 inches in diameter. So this was our third and final log for today because the light is starting to fade. And out of this 20-inch diameter log, we had quite a lot of knots. And we got 16 good 2x4s, 2, kind of rough 2x4s, and we got a whole bunch of 1x2s as well. So let's get stacking.
This is our pile of 2x4s. We've stacked and stickered them. We're not going to be milling any more before winter or putting anything else in this pile now, so we are preparing to leave it for the winter. What we're doing, after all the 2x4s have gone on, the good ones, we've put all the not so good ones on top, and then a couple of these pieces of 1/2-inch offcut, just as a bit of a flat surface, so that we can then put a tarp over this, and the tarp won't sag and touch the 2x4s underneath. On the tarp, we'll then put some nice heavy pieces of offcut that will really weigh this whole thing down, give it some weight, and help keep everything as flat as possible. The light is fading quickly and we are just about done here. All this lumber is now stacked for our solar kiln build that we're going to pick up in spring next year.
So stay tuned, and if you're not subscribed already, please do so, and we'll see you in the next video.